We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
And now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
A time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us in relation to Vietnam. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is a most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformist thought within one's own bosom and in the surrounding world. Moreover, when the issues at hand seem as perplexing as they often do, in the case of this dreadful conflict, we are always on the verge of being mesmerized by uncertainty. But we must move on. Some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak. We must speak with all the humility that is appropriate to our limited vision. But we must speak. And we must rejoice as well, for surely this is the first time in our nation's history that a significant number of its religious leaders have chosen to move beyond the prophesying of smooth patriotism to the high grounds of a firm dissent based upon the mandates of conscience and the reading of history. Perhaps a new spirit is rising among us. If it is, let us trace its movements and pray that our own inner being may be sensitive to its guidance, for we are deeply in need of a new way beyond the darkness that seems so close around us. Over the past 2 years, as I have moved to break the betrayal of my own silences and to speak from the burnings of my own heart, as I have called for radical departures from the destruction of Vietnam, many persons have questioned me about the wisdom of my path. At the heart of their concerns, this query has often loomed large and loud. Why are you speaking about the war, Dr. King? Why are you joining the voices of dissent? Peace and civil rights don't mix, they say. Aren't you hurting the cause of your people, they ask. And when I hear them, though I often understand the source of their concern, I'm nevertheless greatly saddened, for such questions mean that the inquirers have not really known me, my commitment, or my calling. Indeed, their questions suggest that they do not know the world in which they live. In the light of such tragic misunderstanding, I deem it of signal importance to try to state clearly, and I trust concisely, why I believe that the path from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, a church in Montgomery, Alabama, where I began my pastorate, leads clearly to this sanctuary tonight. I come to this platform tonight to make a passionate plea to my beloved nation. This speech is not addressed to Hanoi or to the National Liberation Front. It is not addressed to China or to Russia. Nor is it an attempt to overlook the ambiguity of the total situation and the need for a collective solution to the tragedy of Vietnam. Neither is it an attempt to make North Vietnam or the National Liberation Front paragons of virtue, nor to overlook the role they must play in the successful resolution of the problem. While they both may have justifiable reasons to be suspicious of the good faith of the United States, life and history give eloquent testimony to the fact that conflicts are never resolved without trustful give and take on both sides. Tonight, however, I wish not to speak with Hanoi and the National Liberation Front, but rather to my fellow Americans. That is, at the outset, a very obvious and almost facile connection between the war in Vietnam and the struggle I and others have been waging in America. A few years ago, there was a shining moment in that struggle. It seemed as if there was a real promise of hope for the poor, both black and white, through the poverty program. There were experiments, hopes, new beginnings. And then came the build-up in Vietnam, and I watched this program broken and eviscerated, as if it was some idle political plaything of a society gone mad on war. And I knew that America would never invest the necessary funds or energies in rehabilitation of its poor so long as adventures like Vietnam continued to draw men and skills and money like some demonic destructive suction tube. So I was increasingly compelled to see the war as an enemy of the poor and to attack it as such. Perhaps a more tragic recognition of reality took place when it became clear to me that the war was doing far more than devastating the hopes of the poor at home. It was sending their sons and their brothers and their husbands to fight and to die in extraordinarily high proportions relative to the rest of the population. We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Holland. And so we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. So we watch them in brutal solidarity, burning the huts of a poor village, but we realize that they would hardly live on the same block in Chicago. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor.
What a speech for more than likely one of the last great orators of, I believe, peace for humanity all around. I have longed in my generation for someone with the esteem and demeanor of someone like Martin Luther King Jr. And that's why the JFK assassination is the tip of the iceberg. Really, when you look at what happened with this nation and its intelligence apparatus and its assets and its narration control, back then, if you were able to somehow hit the cultural zeitgeist and be a part of a movement the media couldn't ignore, at some point, they'll kill you. They'll kill you. They won't just kill your character. They won't just deplatform you. It was another era. They'll kill you. Okay? And if you looked at the thumbnail right here, this is the FBI letter to Martin Luther King Jr. Telling him to kill himself. Saying, look, you're a man of low character. Kill yourself. Now, look, there's a lot of allegations out there. Apparently, there are sex tapes of King by the FBI with other women. All that's very possible. All I know is in the public arena, this is a man who just, if you listen to that, and I want you to think about it, how relevant is that today? How relevant is it today? I'd say it's pretty damn relevant. We're still fighting wars that are unjust in other countries around the world. We're still sacrificing our poor, black, white, brown, everything in between, in mass. All right? And we don't talk about it. And really, we are devastating the poor in third world nations now in a 2-decade-long war of terror. No one wants to talk about that either. If they don't speak English, who cares? I care. You should care. I don't look so much different than somebody in the Middle East. And guess what? A lot of you guys don't either. Okay? And even if you do, what are you thinking? Again, I played this instead of a lot of people today, if they do play a speech by Martin Luther King Jr. or they reference it, you're going to have the what? You're going to have the speech, I have a dream. Great speech. Great speech. But a lot of us out there, incorporating the title and kind of incorporating the thumbnail, have false memories. And your dreams are distorted. Carlin said it best, all right? It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And I don't want to get too far away from Martin Luther King Jr. right now, but obviously the corruption of the Justice Department, the Injustice Department, and the FBI is front and center, especially in the conservative or alt media. It's not new. Well, again, it's a dream within a dream to ignore programs like COINTELPRO. All right? And the things that happened to King and Malcolm X. And the things that happened to Robert Kennedy after what? John Kennedy. When I'm saying the things, I'm talking about blowing your head off. That's what I'm talking about. After massive campaigns against them. And look, one of the interesting things I think about all this, right? When you think of political figures that have been able to change culture, there really is nobody else after Martin Luther King Jr. when you're talking just about people on a human level. What do I mean by that? Silence is betrayal. There comes a time when silence is betrayal on everything. That speech is amazing. He talks about his own inner demons. And basically, his betrayals against human beings for not speaking about certain subject matter. Big deal. It's a big deal. You understand? Like that's acknowledging, hey, I'm a human being. I've done this too. Let's stop doing this. Okay? And he's talking about the fact that there's so much conformity out there, especially in times of war. Yeah, I could pull it up on my phone right now. I don't know that I will. Maybe I'll show it in a future broadcast. Maybe we'll put it on Mixed Martial Mindset tonight. But I was out yesterday, out and about, went across the river in the Quad Cities, went from Iowa to Illinois. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen in Iowa either. I'll never forget just going up and taking a right and on the corner of a pretty busy intersection, okay? You had a multitude of people with the yellow and the blue and flying flags for Ukraine and all this stuff. I'm just thinking, these people have no idea what they're doing. You're encouraging a hot war now with Russia. No longer a proxy war. And even in the beginning, it wasn't really a proxy war because all our technology was there. We clearly had intelligence officers on the ground, past the border, directing the vast majority, if not all of the operations. Let's grow up. Okay? That stuff's becoming mainstream news now. But yesterday, guy in front of me, old timer, big beard, didn't get a great look at his face, but easily 50s, 60s. He's got the American flag flying out one side of his four-wheel drive, Ukraine flag on the other. And I'm like, damn, man. Just by doing that, you're encouraging people who live in that country and who live in the other country to continually kill each other. You're not helping. I'm sorry, you're not helping. And that needs to be said. Ignorance is not bliss. See, that's the deal. A lot of people say, Jason, wouldn't you rather just not know this stuff, just kind of live your life, do your thing, blah, blah. No, that's not good for society. When you do that, when you acquiesce to that type of evil, okay, more evil occurs. And if it's not already touching you, it's coming to touch you. And don't tell me that a lot of you haven't felt that touch over the past several years. It may not be as brazen as what you see when you look at the type of conflict and warfare via Ukraine, Russia, okay? But most of us just don't believe that could ever happen here on any level. I'm going to have, a few stories mainstream today that might change your mind because warfare is changing. And the bottom line is, I don't believe that the NSA or the CIA or the FBI have you and my, best interests at heart. In fact, right now what I see is a limited hangout, media-run operation to get ready to remove Joe Biden from office in a manner that doesn't make the establishment admit that he's a dementia-ridden old man that hasn't run anything, okay? And on top of that, I'm hearing you on the other end, just to let you know, producer. So I'm not sure if that's going through, guys. That is what that is. I know that might be going through on the one feed. So you have that going on. And on top of all that, you basically are going to be able to get rid of him. And you're going to be able to get rid of him without admitting like he's a criminal. Like somehow, it was a mistake. I think this whole thing is an operation. All right, period. The whole thing is an op. So they realize that this guy, who knows what Joe Biden's thinking? I don't know what he thinks when he wakes up in the morning. He might think he's king of the world. He might think he's Polly Prissy Pants. I don't know. Like when he wakes up, where he is, what he's thinking about. What I can tell you is they don't let him anywhere near running the country. Period. That's not a thing. He's not running the country. Okay? I don't believe that he's up 8 consecutive hours in a day, let alone like if you're the president of the United States, okay, like 10 to 14 hours a day, you're working hard the vast majority of the time. 10 to 14, your schedule, go look at old presidential schedules. You know, for the old men, I mean, they're doing it. Do you really believe that's what Biden's at? He's not able to do that. He's got to take a nap all the time. He doesn't know where he is. They can't admit that. They can't admit to all the crimes and corruption over the past multitude of decades. They can't admit that either. It's a no bueno for them. You understand? So, are you guys sitting there listening to that butterscotch? Yeah. They can't admit it. So, that's it. That they've decided he's talking about running again. I'm sure this guy has all sorts of old criminal documents, by the way. That's for sure. That's my guess. So, I'm going to say he's got 2 to 6 months in office max at this point. And they're going to get rid of him. That's next. Okay, that's the next deal. So we don't even have, we talk about, for instance, he's talking about the rights and freedoms that they don't have in certain parts of this country that you're trying to bring to Vietnam. Okay? It's kind of where we're at here. I mean, do we have free and fair elections? Do we have one person, one vote? No, we have a system of command and control that wants to bring in a tyrannical, biometric slave state onto an automated transhumanist future. I wish it weren't that way. All under the guise of sustainability and that we're evil as human beings. And this is the thing. I've talked about this for a very long time, okay? The new civil rights movement, in my eyes, okay, the new one, the one that went well beyond race, immediately happened after 9/11. Immediately. Whether I realized it or not. I didn't realize it until I realized that the story that I was given, that a bunch of Islamic Muslims that hated our freedoms, they hated our freedoms. If you don't like it, you just get out. Right? So, drives me nuts, guys. So these people that hate our freedoms, okay, did this bad thing, but then you find out, wait a minute, it's not people that hate our freedoms. And everybody in that building was a target. And you want to talk about a melting pot in the United States, New York City, love it or loathe it. That's what it is. And I'm sorry, that building was filled with everybody. Everybody. Whites, Asians, Hispanics, blacks, you name it. Everybody. Women, children, everybody. And if everybody are targets like that, then everybody's a target. And when you don't have accountability for people that will commit mass murder and genocide with the most adept and advanced tools of warfare in charge, you're in a very bad situation, especially when those people have openly discussed that there are too many people on the planet, that the ecosystem is crashing due to this, that climate change is happening, that our standards of living are too high, that robots are coming, like it or not, that we need to lock down for emergencies and perhaps climate emergencies. All this is in our face now. And it kind of takes me, by the way, if you haven't seen Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, I just want to say that that among all my films are free. If you're a new viewer, if you're just coming over from perhaps that latest roundtable that I did with Whitney Webb, James Corbett, The Last American Vagabond, and Derek Bros, thank you so much for putting that on. Great panel, only about an hour. Probably could have gone for 2 hours easily. If you're coming over, you haven't seen my work, you don't know what it's all about. Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. It's a great transition for what I wanted to talk about today. Okay? That's my film where I took all this research because after 9/11 is a gut punch. Okay? It's a gut punch. It's just like, ooh, you don't want that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. This is the civil rights movement for everybody. There is a movement, an ideal set, a powerful group of people behind the scenes that are generational and have used nepotism and manipulation to run most of the show. It's like competing gangster factions. Okay, you find that out. And their tagline for this, again and again, has been the New World Order. Now, I hated that term when I first started looking at 9/11. I disliked it. I didn't want to use it. I preferred the term global elite. You hear that a lot. The elites. Yes, the elites. The global elite. Okay? And I used that for a time. But, as I did more and more research, I could not fool myself and I could not lie to myself. I could not betray myself. Okay? And I realized that in this case, silence was betrayal. And I needed to try to show the world that the New World Order isn't, this one group of dun 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 dun. It's not the stonecutters, right? It's not like a Simpsons caricature. It's the writings and practices of men and groups over time. Sometimes it's referencing the current order of the world, but at the end of the day, it is about collectivism and globalism and central command and control. And Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined has parts on the House Assassination Committee, shows the dirty dealings of the deep state, the military-industrial complex from within. If you want to know what the deep state really is, I don't think that it gets much better than having somebody like Peter Dale Scott, who coined the term deep state and talks about deep events and deep politics in the film from 2010. Now 13 years old. That thing's going to be 20 before I know it. 20 before I know it. And if these people get their way, who knows if you'll get to see it? Who knows if you'll actually have access to it through the narrative control and the ministry of truth. And really, so much of that is archived footage. And, I have a little snippet of MLK, JFK, RFK in there. Just a really important film, one I'm seriously proud of. I think overall, Shade the Motion Picture is still my best. It's more compact and palatable, and it's just shot better. You don't have to hear my annoying voice throughout the whole thing. But I'm very proud of Invisible Empire. And the term New World Order has kind of been replaced now by the Great Reset. Okay? And it's almost like a rebranding of the same global idea set and quote-unquote sustainability goals that have really been now discussed for generations. And if you watch TruthStream Media's King of the World, all right, TruthStream Media, top of the line, I would say on top of King of the World, you're going to want to check out The Minds of Men. Great documentary series out there by TruthStream Media. It's The Minds of Men, almost 4 hours. When I say documentary series, they've made a multitude of not only videos, shorts, many of the videos are a little longer, but also documentaries straight up. They're incredible filmmakers, and The King of the World lets you understand this mindset of not only we deserve to rule, rule by bloodline. That's embedded in some of these families. You realize, still today, Saudi royal family, European royal, it's embedded in them. That generationally they have been chosen to rule, and because they rule, they deserve to rule. And the rest of us believe it, are the peasant and serf class. This is the predator class. And very few are able to socially climb to get into that predator class. There are some. It's tough. I mean, you got to be ruthless. You know, like Carlin says, it's a big club, and you and I are not in it. So now there's a rebrand of the New World Order into the Great Reset, and really it's just repackaged. It's the same thing, repackaged. It's repackaged globalism all day, every day. That's it. And when I made Invisible Empire, I came in at this viewpoint. When I was a kid, I'd go to church. A lot of churches. And one of the running themes in any church, and even as a child, you'll remember this if you went, of the rapture times and Revelations and the apocalypse. The end time's always a big thing, right? You got to save your soul. You got to fight the devil. And the mark of the beast is something that's talked about again and again and again. And this idea of globalism and a one world order is talked about again and again and again. And of course, I'm going to say this. I don't speak or read Aramaic. I know there are a multitude of different Bibles out there. I don't know necessarily what to believe, but as a kid, I did read Revelations a lot. And along with all these things, from a mark within your hand or your head to buy or sell, comes the New World Order, right? The global government they talk about in this thing. And I dismissed it all. I dismissed the idea of Satanism being anything but something that was pushed to be taboo in culture and rock and roll, and really those that gravitated toward it actually, like in school, were the kids that weren't popular, wanted to wear eye makeup, and didn't have a girlfriend. I never imagined that there are occultic, pagan, and even darker clubs that go back centuries, right? Certainly didn't understand that even as a plaything, with what you could call their fraternal orders or large-scale clubs, you had occultic symbolism like the owl at Bohemian Grove or Skull and Bones with you. No idea. And I see those people in particular acting like they're men of the Lord and then promoting this idea of a new world order. George H.W. Bush, obviously, in particular. But if you see my film, Bill Clinton, okay, John Kerry, Tony Blair, Eric Schmidt's in there. So many people using that terminology. Madeleine Albright, Brent Scowcroft. And there has to also be an acknowledgement that this is extremely old. You know, one of the things I highlight in the film is a book called The New World Order by Samuel Zane Batten. All right, now a century old. And it clearly describes a collectivist type society. Okay? The good of the many for the sacrifice of the few. And here's the thing. Once you buy into that ideal set, nobody is safe. Nobody is safe. As soon as the system deems you vulnerable, replaceable, unfit, all right, or you start to oppose it, that's it. If you're not going along with the song and dance, see you later. See you later, alligator. Out of here. Period. So, we got a lot coming up in the show today. I actually have an interview with Clay Clark in the second hour. We're going to be talking about the upcoming event that I'll be speaking at this weekend. I'm speaking, I believe it's Saturday night at 7:45 p.m. That's the latest I've ever spoke at one of these things. So I'm going to be giving my presentation on Elon Musk and transhumanism. Probably going as hard on the Muskernuts as I possibly can, bringing the thunder, bringing the pain on that, because you got to. Like, it's getting out of control. Like, too many people are buying into this guy in the Twitter files. You know what I was thinking about today on this? And by the way, that's in Nashville, Tennessee, but you'll hear all about it. Had a really good conversation with Clay. That's going to be in the second hour. That's over at redvoicemedia.com/Jason or redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. Or if you just want to listen to it, which is A-OK with me, you can head over to the infowarrior.podbean.com. And over there, it's also going to be streaming live and free. I want to remind everybody that every day we do one of these broadcasts, even though the first hour is free and the second hour is premium, we also release a second hour from 2 weeks ago where you get to see the whole thing for free anyway. So really consider supporting us. It's $10 a month or $100 for the year. redvoicemedia.com/uncensored or redvoicemedia.com/Jason is how you can get in the mix there. But again, everything after 2 weeks goes free anyway. So getting back, man, I kind of lost myself right there. I was talking New World Order, and I was talking about Samuel Zane Batten. I was talking about collectivism and how this is an old thing and how many people have talked about this. The bottom line is, right now, a lot of that's in place. Okay, it's here now. And this movement is pushing forward, right? So I'm going to continue to try to expose as much as the future I think that I can stop. I hope most people aren't going to take the old Muskernuts chip, the Neuralink. I'm going to be talking about that today, hosting the fourth hour of Alex Jones's show as well today. I got a dental appointment in about an hour and a half. It's going to be brutal. I'm still coming back. I'm still doing the Jones show. Okay. Fourth hour. And that's because aside from the presentation I'm going to be giving in Nashville, Tennessee, I want to reach as many people with this message there, because that brings me back to what I was thinking about with Alex Jones and the Twitter files. Why don't we have any Twitter files on InfoWars and Alex Jones? Can somebody tell me that? I mean, isn't that a good question? Shouldn't even Alex be asking that question? How many weeks has it been now that we've got Taibbi and others releasing these documents? And I see Matt Taibbi all over mainstream media. I saw he just did Max Blumenthal and the Gray Zone. And that's over at Rockfin, by the way. Okay. Can we put our big boy pants on? Can we get past just the COVID-19 84 nightmare? Can we get to the real deplatforming? Can we get to the internal emails of Jack and others on Alex Jones after he was already deplatformed from YouTube and Facebook? And, you know, I know what they said, and I don't necessarily disagree with the angle they took. So in other words, you know, they said that they took him off because of his behavior with Oliver Darcy, the CNN executive, calling him like a possum. I watched it. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. I mean, Alex Jones basically calling this guy a weasel and a possum face and everything else, you know, all there. Aren't we going to see that stuff? Because after Alex Jones is gone, one by one, okay, people that worked with InfoWars or for InfoWars or associated with InfoWars, they were deplatformed too. Where's all that? Where's the WikiLeaks type dump? So, just saying, guys, I mean, I saw a lot of the comments out there on the Muskernuts and the panel and all that good stuff. And what I'm going to tell people is, you know, some people were like, wolf in sheep's clothing? I doubt it. And luckily, some people were kind of genuine in the sense that they made a comment before they watched any of the video. Any of the videos. Or maybe they watched like a 60 or 90 second clip. I do want to thank the good people over at Red Voice Media. They've been cutting certain sections up and just throwing them up there in, you know, 2 minute, 5 minute, 6 minute subsections, which is good, you know, gets people thinking. There were a couple people that weren't just anonymous loser trolls, a couple, because there's plenty of the anonymous loser trolls that want to get in there. They want to take a jab at Jason Bermas or James Corbett or Whitney Webb, etc., or Derek in particular. I mean, just losers. But some people are like, okay, you know what? Now that I've seen this information, I'm at least willing to consider it. And they only watched a 5 or 6 minute clip. You watch that hour and how much documentation you have about what Musk is doing and not saying. Okay? And it's over the top. I mean, that guy's a threat to humanity. It's what he is. Okay? Just saying. He is a threat to humanity. All right. I want to move on to a few of the news stories that are out there today. The Biden thing we're going to get to, it's within here because, again, it's almost cartoonish and farcical in a lot of ways. Sincerest form of flattery, CNN is mulling stand-up comic for primetime show after Fox News funny man Greg Gutfeld smashed ratings with Bill Maher and Jon Stewart among names in frame. And what they're talking about is it's called Gutfeld now. And all right, let's talk about it, because I watch Gutfeld every once in a while, but that's because really that type of panel show, the 4 and a host panel show, especially when you're talking politics, has kind of been a winning formula since Bill Maher was doing it. And by the way, they're talking about Bill Maher again. I don't think they're going to get Bill Maher, but we'll get to that in a minute. Since Bill Maher did it with Politically Incorrect. Okay, that's just a fact, Jack. Love him or hate him. Politically Incorrect, and that started on Comedy Central. I believe it got picked up by ABC. It was one of the big networks, nighttime. And in that hour, right, first of all, you had Bill Maher. He's a decent stand-up comedian. He's the funny man. You put the funny man at the front, and then you bring in political figures, cultural figures, etc., and have a conversation. Winning formula every time. Same show Gutfeld does right now. Same exact show, right? Colin Quinn used to do it with Tough Crowd, right? It was more geared towards comedians and less geared towards political figures, but certainly they were talking about the cultural issues and politics of the day. Okay? That's the truth. So, to me, you know, it would be a no-brainer to get Bill Maher. Bill Maher is really rich. Like, Bill Maher's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. Bill Maher was a producer on Vice when it was just a show. Right? Remember when Vice seemed a little bit more hard-hitting and it was asking the tough questions and it was going to North Korea with the basketball players, right? Hadn't really shown its true colors or agenda yet. And by the way, there's some valuetainment over at Vice, the wrestling stuff, Tales from the Territories, Dark Side of the Ring, Dark Side of the 90s, Dark Side of Comedy. Those are kind of like entertaining. I would compare them to like the True Hollywood Stories of the 90s and early 2000s. Remember those? Those were always fun. These little AJ Benza. So you have Bill Maher there, and I mean, I just think he's got too much money. I don't think he would want to do that because I do think that comes with strings, and I honestly think CNN would like the idea of Bill Maher, but Bill Maher occasionally gets things really right. Okay, but occasionally strays away from the Johnny nonsense and the agenda. Occasionally, not all the time. A lot of the time he doesn't. Jon Stewart, I don't know what happened, man. And to this day, I'll still have the slightest bit of respect for Jon Stewart because he worked with John Feel and the Feel Good Foundation, and he really fought the machine to get the first responders the care they deserved after 9/11, and to me, that's a big deal. You know, obviously, I think anybody that went in there and saved lives that day and put their life on the line or cleaned up after the fact and breathed all, they need to be taken care of. And that's the thing. It's not like I'm apathetic to these issues. I'm very empathetic, because to do that, and you hear some of the stories that day. Again, we played the Anthony Saltalamacchia interview. Basically his speech at this thing where he talks about Willie Rodriguez and his bravery and being around people that had their skin melted off of them, right? And explosions in the towers in the basement level that weren't supposed to happen. Going back to when I decided, hey, a 9/11 issue, a lot of you that are new to this, or maybe my younger crowd, and when I say my younger crowd, maybe even the people in like their 30s that watch me, I'm an old man now at 43, cannot understand what it was like to dare to question 9/11 within the first 6 months to a year. And then invoke some really hard truths that pointed the finger to at least some people within our own government being involved. Extremely difficult. It was one of those things, again, King talked about it in the beginning of this program, that sometimes it feels kind of like a burden that you have to speak out because it makes life more difficult. Oh, well. The truth is the truth. Lies don't make friends. And if you're going to remain silent, you're not only betraying your friends, your family, yourself, the ones you love, but you're betraying your future as well. Because if you don't stand up to the actual problems and dangers, they don't get better. And neither does your quality of life. It actually gets worse. Because the people that do these type of things feel emboldened and emblazoned to do more. And they continue to do more. It is only when you confront them head on that they back off in any way, shape, or form. All right, let's move on to our next story here. Stephen King infuriates upstate New Yorkers by saying House Speaker's election drama was as bad as the vacation to Utica. And look, you better apologize for that. How dare you, sir? How dare you? First of all, I'm not claiming that Utica is the best thing since breakfast. But I'm an upstate New York guy. And if it weren't for the authoritarian dictates, the out-of-control prices of everything, I'd love to go back. I miss my friends. I miss my brother. I miss a lot about upstate New York. In fact, this weekend, while I was watching the MMA fights, the little 2 TV setup in the living room, and I had boxing over on the left, and it was over at the Turning Stone Casino, which is right in that Utica area. It's an Indian casino, but right there. And I thought about a lot of the good times I'd had at that casino, and not gambling in particular, but going to see Roger Daltrey of The Who there. Great time. Fun times. The buffet, pretty good. Pretty good. And it sucks that authoritarians have completely taken over and ruined it, and I don't think that we'll ever see a free and fair election on a large scale at all. I really don't. I just do not see it. Again, I don't know if you're allowed to say it on YouTube. I don't believe that Kelly Hochul or Kathy Hochul, I keep calling her Kelly, don't I? Maybe because I want to call her Kel. I don't like her. All right? Kelly Hochul's in there. Kelly, I said it again. Kathy Hochul is in there to promote an agenda. And if I dare say I don't believe that we have the free and fair elections over in New York, and I think we have a rigged system, oh well. And I don't like Lee Zeldin either. To make that extremely clear, I don't like Lee Zeldin. I just don't happen to think that we have the free and fair elections that they keep telling us we have, right? We're fighting for freedom in Ukraine. Do we have freedom in this country? Is that a real thing? We've been covering this story, and again, I don't necessarily love Glenn Youngkin, but he slams maniacal decision by 7 schools in woke district to hide merit awards from top students to boost equity, as AG warns move could have cost youngsters college scholarships. Of course it does. Of course. First of all, if there's ever going to be a meritocracy, and we all know that in society sometimes there isn't a meritocracy. Sometimes you just get exploited, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of savvy and a little bit of gumption and a little individuality, and that's what they hate, by the way, to rise to the cream of the crop, to the top. Okay? You get it? They want to take that away. And in school, especially when you're talking about scholarships, you're talking about which school you're going to get into, what programs you're going to get into, they look at the best of the best. And if you have an award here and an extracurricular there, it obviously matters, especially when you're talking about scholarships. But this is the next level of the participation trophy. And it's also there to perpetuate division amongst racial issues and lines. Listen again to what King said. They're killing poor white boys. They're killing poor black boys. It doesn't matter. They're killing the poor. And you know what? He also talked about the poverty program. And when you look at the origins of these little, like the actual poverty programs, what you had was kind of a workfare system, right? Where you were encouraging people to learn a skill so then they could go work. We don't have that anymore. They want people on the dole. They want the handout system. They want you to believe you can't exist, an inability to exist without the state helping you. They love it. They love it because they hate your standard of living. They hate your individual humanity. Okay, they hate everything about us because we pose a threat, all right, to the hierarchy of a predator class that is in a command and control system now for centuries. And they continue to try to regiment human beings further and further. And part of that is dividing us so we can't come together to boost equity. And really, let's be honest, they badly want to trigger people in this country to start attacking physically other people. Okay? So they want to enrage you through the school system, and a group of people causes physical harm to somebody on the school board or in the district. They love that sort of thing because that in turn lets them go, see, I told you, that's a terrorist right there. That's a person that doesn't deserve any civil liberties or rights. And there are other people like that person. We need to deal with them. We've actually profiled a lot of them. And we need new statutes for pre-crime. That's where this is headed. That's where this is going. All right, let's continue down the line. And getting back to the war, let's not call it a conflict, the war in Ukraine with Russia that clearly is no longer proxy and clearly dangerous for us. Drone warfare, we often talk about it in the sky, and we should. It's something we should discuss. UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, you can't imagine what they're really up to and what they're really using. And at this point, we even know about the autonomous drones. We know about the Starlink systems. We know about the Blackjack systems. We know about the Ghost drones. We know about the Sidewinder drones, etc. A lot of it public knowledge. We don't talk about the UUVs enough, the unmanned underwater vehicles. And right here, we're talking about UUVs and their nuclear capabilities and the possibility that these could get to what? The shores of Europe, Britain in particular. So forget about the space warfare, which is very real. All right. And the other thing is, a lot of people talk about, and when I say people, mostly the flat earth space is fake folks are always talking about Antarctica. And here's my take on Antarctica. I just want to make it very clear. I am not one of those people. I think space is very real. I do not think we live on a flat plane. Just saying. Just want to put that out there. The Arctic, all right, was one of those places that had not been colonized, mostly because of its rough terrain in many areas, although there clearly are lush areas. I've seen the Admiral Byrd footage. I know all about Operation High Jump, etc. If you go back into history and you read about the Nazis, for instance, and their Arctic missions, I think what happens post-World War II is that basically you have two large superpowers, the United States and Russia, the Soviet Union, okay? And there are certain deals that are cut right then and there for what can and can't be done in the Arctic region. And even when you get to global treaties later, it's derived from those agreements. And the same thing goes for space. And the Arctic regions are just a place for black sites, bases, tests, etc., because they are so large. And I think that they are probably dominated by Russia and the United States, with, of course, Europe probably being somewhere in there now, and possibly China, because this isn't really about the nation state, right? It's about an ideal set. It goes well past the nation state. By the way, 215 people watching over on YouTube. Let's get the thumbs up and share these videos as well. Rumble, thumbs it up as well. We always need that. And remember, we're all over the place. We're Twitter, we're Rumble, we're Rockfin, we're YouTube. But in about 2 minutes, we're going to be exclusive to redvoicemedia.com/Jason, redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. Please consider signing up. $10 for the first week. You actually get it for $1 to try it out. See if you like it. See if my 4 hours of content on top of the other 4 hours of content, and then all the bonus content that they put out there. For instance, Red Voice is great. They'll come over, they'll post or re-upload something like the forum with James Corbett, Whitney Webb, Heavy Hitters, T-Lab, Conscious Resistance, etc. And you get that as well. And that's free anyway. It's a great place to just stop and find it, right? So we're putting out, I don't know, I'm doing like 10 plus hours of content a week. It's a lot. It's a lot. I could do without hearing my voice that much. Trust me. Let's hit one more story up, okay? Before we head over to the Uncensored. House Republicans demand access to visitor logs from Biden's Delaware home to determine who may have been able to access classified documents found there. It's part of the sham. It's part of narrative control. It's the ability for establishment Republicans to look like they're doing something for the country. Meanwhile, real investigations, real punishments, they're not coming, they're not happening, no bueno, no good, not real. Real investigations not happening into the COVID 1984 nightmare, not going to happen. Limited hangout there. You'll have a couple people that'll do the right thing, ask the right questions. Will prosecutions happen? Will people go to jail? I don't think so. So, guys, again, on the other side, we're going to have the Clay Clark interview. We're going to be doing that, but we're going to be hitting a couple more news stories, and then I have a few clips that I want to play, and I want to emphasize that this agenda is not a left or right agenda. It is a right and wrong agenda. It's a very real one. I'll also be hosting again the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show today. We do it Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can't beat it, so you might as well join it. All right, let's start signing off on these. Rockfin, thank you so much. All you guys over there that are supporters via Rockfin, I could not do it without you. And actually, let's thank the Tipsky and Hutch from AREM. Did somebody say New World Order? Mr. Tuttle, the singing turtle. So I don't know about Mr. Tuttle and the singing turtle, but I do appreciate the tip, AREM. Really do. Rockfin.